Does anybody remember a tight end who played for LSU back in 2020 by the name of Arik Gilbert? Usually mispronounced Arik, but Arik Gilbert. Of course you do. Because he hasn't been able to get out of the news even when he hasn't been on the football field, which is just crazy. Usually once you're off the football field, the game passes you by. The media who cover the game tend to focus on what's going around with the game, and you're not there. So why would you be a story? Well, you're a story if you give the media something to really just go nuts about and really just harp on and go crazy on. And Arik Gilbert keeps giving it to him. And, the 4 different schools he's played for is not even a part of that. Literally, he has played for LSU. He committed at one point for like 3 weeks to Florida. Decommitted from Florida, went back to LSU, enrolled in online classes at LSU. Decommitted from LSU the second things were getting tough, and then went to Georgia. For 2 national championship winning seasons, the first of which he may have been part of the title, may have gotten a ring for that season, 2021/22, but I'm not so sure because he didn't partake in a single snap for that season. This last season, he played 31 total snaps, 2 catches, one of them was a touchdown, 16 total yards. This is a dude who used to be the number 5 overall player in his class, the number 1 tight end ranked in his class in 2020, but more than that, he was the number 1 tight end prospect in history as far as recruiting rankings. And that makes sense. I know he's been a bust, but if you go and you look back, of course he should have been. When you look at the speed he had, how big he is, the hands he's got. There were people comparing him to Eric Dickerson, his speed. And I'm not saying that that's just from some crazy, like those are from esteemed top-of-the-line analysts saying this guy's got Eric Dickerson speed, and he's got the hands of, a Gronkowski and a body of a this, and, just the perfect composite tight end, the perfect player for the modern game. And everything seemed perfect, right? He had 358 yards, 35 catches for a freshman tight end. That's pretty remarkable. Only 2 touchdowns, including one in his debut game against Mississippi State, but that was not enough for Arik Gilbert. He left LSU because that was not enough, I guess. And then it became, he got out. He left LSU because there's bad influences there. He was smoking weed, and he was smoking too much weed at LSU, and so he had to leave, right? That's what we were told. Well, it seemed like the weed thing continued to follow, and, I think the weed thing was kind of used by people who actually really knew what was going on as kind of a disguise for what was really at the root of everything for Arik Gilbert. He literally leaves LSU, goes to Georgia, plays 31 snaps, only takes part in 1 national championship out of 2. And then he says, you know what, screw this, Georgia. I'm not going to be behind, Brock Bowers and all these guys. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm out of here. And where does he go? To probably the last place he should have gone. Omaha, Nebraska. I'm not saying Matt Rule and his culture isn't a good fit for Arik Gilbert, or could have been. I'm simply saying Omaha, Nebraska is probably the worst place on earth to send Arik Gilbert to kind of get him to figure his life out. Because this is more than just figuring football out and his career out. This is about life. And he goes to Omaha, and he has a good spring, has some difficulties, go through his fall, has more difficulties. Difficulties continue to mount as the business part of the season begins to ratchet up, which is a pattern every time with Arik Gilbert. Whenever the going got intense and tough, he couldn't handle it. And many are going to call him just a quitter. He's just a spoiled little brat. All this stuff. But I think there's something a lot deeper here going on, because when you are potentially about to be the best player, best athlete on your team, and you've barely even played the last 2 years, and you still can be that good. You still could be that good. And yet, whether or not you want to play football, you could still attend this university and with this scholarship and get a pretty damn good degree that's going to probably seal your future in communications, talking football, sports management, sports medicine. You can go into anything through the prism of sports with that scholarship, with that degree. Most student athletes, their degrees work for them, unlike a lot of people who go to university, go to college. But no. Instead, Arik Gilbert in Omaha, the whole specter of marijuana and the weed thing in the background, and it's not typical weed we're talking about. We're talking about this new vape kind, new wax shit that's not total synthetic weed. And so it's we don't really know what it does to the mind totally right now. And you're talking to someone who's pro-legalization, so I'm not really anti-marijuana here, but there's some people who definitely should have never touched it, and Arik Gilbert is one of them. But you've got someone who now goes and burglarizes a vape shop / liquor store in Omaha. $1,600 worth of vape pens, weed products made with Delta 8, which is kind of like a federally legal THC. There's video already leaking of him kicking in a door with like something over, like a bag over his head. And he doesn't even look like an intimidating crook. He looks like he is out of his fucking mind. He is literally grabbing his head, going like, and maybe he's going, what the fuck am I doing? What did I just do? What am I doing here? What did I just do? What did I just do this for? But in the video, he looks like he is literally having a mental episode. I mean, if I were to break in to somewhere like that, you better believe the next day I'm having a mental episode, and that's what happened. Because I don't understand why the hell anyone would do this. Was he that desperate for marijuana? Thinking that's going to be the thing that's going to heal me? Because I got news for him, it's not. And I don't even think the psychiatric help or the antidepressants are going to help him out either. Because we've seen him go down that route as well. Supposedly I've heard he's been institutionalized. I've heard he's gone through many different things to try and help him. But mental illness or not, marijuana addiction or not, you've got to want to get that help. And I don't know if he's at that point yet. Like, I mean, that's really what I feel is at the crux of this issue is mental illness. This is a young man who is mentally ill. We don't know, like, bipolar or what, schizophrenic or what, like, we've heard talk of him being schizophrenic for years. And it always seemed like a bunch of BS and a bunch of hosh-posh. But then when I heard about his institutionalization about 2 years ago, it was like, wow, this is real. Didn't really put too much stock into it still, because you just never know. Today I'm quite sure he's suffering from something like that. You know, most of our world is very unforgiving and like to really shove people's faces in it, and then other part of our world are way to the other extreme. Tolerate anything. I think it's time for Arik Gilbert, if he is suffering from mental illness, the people in his life need to stop worrying about football and start worrying about their son. Because we can put the Band-Aid on it, now go back to football. We can put a Band-Aid on it, now go to this other place. It's not working out. You need to get your son out of football permanently and fix his life. Because right now it seems as if he is incapable of doing that for himself. He's an adult and he cannot do this for himself. I have consistently heard talk about this type of personality from Arik Gilbert that very childlike in a lot of respects. That can only happen from someone's environment that they're raised in. The people around Arik Gilbert have to bear some responsibility for what has happened. You cannot keep putting your son in the same damn situation over and over and over and expecting different results when you've given him no tools to deal with any of these issues. He's been booked into the Omaha prison. He's in custody right now, and I hope nothing but the best for Arik Gilbert. I am hoping that God listens to him and helps him, speaks to him, gets him through this. Because as much as he deserves a good, swift kick in the ass, I think it's more the people around him who deserve that. Arik Gilbert right now, he might as well be called a victim of the whole thing. Too much, too soon, and everyone else who was an enabler in this situation has a lot to be haunted by right now with those images of Arik breaking into that store.